What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Steelers Breakdown Podcast. Nick Farabaugh here with you guys as usual. And I got my good pal City Limits, as you may know him, on the afternoon. Oh, sorry, the morning show. The mid show, I guess, is what it is. The midday show, right, Austin?
That's right.
You and Starkey and Pomp are on there, and he thinks I'm from Slippery Rock, and we got everything going. But Austin Bechtold, welcome to the show, man.
Nick, great to be with you. Always great to talk to you. Typically, you're coming on my show, whether it be at night or on the weekend on the fan. So it's good to be able to return the favor and come on with you.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on. And I do want to talk today a little bit about TJ Watt. Obviously, that's a big thing that's been happening. TJ Watt not at mandatory minicamp, was not at OTAs. Will he be at training camp if he doesn't have a deal? Who knows? I think that's going to be one of the key things to look at if he doesn't have a deal. But the Steelers got active last night. They signed DeShon Elliott to a new 2-year extension on top of this year, so he's under contract of 2027. First of all, your initial reaction to the DeShon Elliott deal and how you think TJ Watt's kind of process is going to play out.
Well, first, Nick, I was surprised by the timing of the deal. Like the fact that mandatory minicamp is over. This is kind of that lull dead period where nothing really happens in the NFL. Teams, players, everybody just takes their vacation. Like, we'll see you in a month. We'll see you at St. Vincent. So, timing of it odd. The deal in its entirety, I like it. I think it's good value for Elliott. They signed him for a decent number in free agency to begin with a season ago. I was a little skeptical of the deal. I have to admit it. When it was first signed a year ago and they brought him on, DeShon Elliott surprised me with the type of player that he was. And we kind of saw the Elliott that had success in Baltimore, where he plays really well in the box. He's a solid tackler. I worry about his coverage a little bit, but he does a lot of the little things right for them. And for the highest paid defense, which they've been for the last 4 years, you could also make the argument, well, they're throwing even more money into that defensive side of the ball. I think that this is good value. I'm okay with this money being spent there. And Elliott's probably the most underrated player on that defense. I'm cool with it. And adding on 2 additional years, it makes me wonder, though, Nick, does this change the status of Minkah Fitzpatrick at all, whose contract is up, what, in one more year? Like, will there be Minkah Fitzpatrick discussions, contract talks at any point? Or could this be the Steelers are making sure that they are tying up loose ends, or maybe not the best term, but making sure they have their ducks in a row just in case they move off of Minka after this year?
It's possible. I mean, Minka's contract is big, but he's under
Yeah.
contract through 2026. So there's 2 years left on his deal, but they could cut him, of course, if he doesn't play well. But I actually think DeShon Elliott with Juan Thornhill, this is a chance, I think, for Minka to potentially become Minka again.
I hope
He's
so.
been great in minicamp and OTAs. In these 3 days of minicamp, last week he had 5 picks. I'm just saying, I've never seen Minka do that, but he was moving around everywhere. Maybe they can get him back to being that. Minka's still a really good player. So we'll see. It's just going to be the high price tag for a safety. You can't just be a good safety. You got to be an elite safety.
Nick, he had more picks in minicamp than he did in the Pro Bowl and the regular season combined
I
over the
know
last couple of years.
it's crazy,
How
man.
about that?
But I know the ball hawk is still there. That's what I kind of trying to say there is. We'll see where that goes. But I wonder who's next. And
Yeah.
there's a few candidates on the block that could be. And TJ Watt's obviously the biggest one. They have been talking active contract negotiations for a long time. But you look down the roster, Calvin Austin in the last year of his deal, Jaylen Warren in the last year of his deal, Isaac Seumalo last year of his deal. They get Isaac Seumalo signed past this year. Do they even need another offensive lineman next year? If Broderick Jones is good, if Troy Fautanu's good, they probably have their starting five. So if they want to keep continuity, do they try and extend Isaac Seumalo? He's getting older, but they could add 1 or 2 years onto that. Is there anyone else out of this group, maybe even someone I didn't name, outside of TJ Watt that you would extend?
Seumalo, you bring up a good point with him because I have not even considered that as a possibility. I know that you brought up with me before the idea of could Calvin Austin be somebody that they would sign? And that could be a possibility at maybe 8, 9, 10 million a year. But Sam Malo kind of seems like the anchor of that offensive line until at least Zach Frazier grabs fully a hold of that. He did for a good part of last year and is going to become the leader of that line. But right now, it's still Seumalo. So he's been good. With Philadelphia, he was great. I don't think he's reached that great level. Maybe that's also because some of the other guys around him, he's helping to compensate for Dan Moore on the left side or compensate for Frazier being a rookie and still trying to learn a little bit of the ropes. I would be okay with the Seumalo contract extension. I'd be fine with it. I kind of wonder at the same time. Now, this is not somebody that I would extend at this point, but could there be a consideration going into next year about what ultimately happens with Joey Porter Jr.? Now, there are still, 2 years left on that deal, being a second round pick, despite being the number 32 overall pick, does not have a fifth year option. Could he be somebody that they would just, he needs a bounce back year because last year, way too many penalties, way too grabby. He still doesn't have enough interceptions for my liking either. Good cover corner, but there are some things that he has to tweak and work on in his game where at this point I say no, but I do wonder because we know how much the Steelers love family ties, if that would be something in their consideration for the following year to jump ahead a little bit further.
Well, I do think if things go to plan, the ideal, you would extend Joey, you would extend Keanu Benton on
Yeah,
top of that. Darnell Washington, I mean, we'll
yeah,
see. And then, I mean, Nick Herbig is going to be a real interesting discussion because TJ is going to get a big contract here. Plus, you have Highsmith. Do you want to lose Herbig? That's tough too. So there's a lot of interesting discussions that we can get into for next year. But I think this year, I was I mentioned this on Twitter yesterday, and this is kind of what I would do. I actually would extend Calvin Austin. I would extend Jaylen Warren. Seumalo, I'd like Seumalo, but tape last year up and down, a little more inconsistent than I would like. But he was playing around young guys a lot, and he was hurt to begin the year. So we'll see about the Seumalo idea. Here's why I would sign Austin and Warren. You need so much draft capital next year with all the needs the Steelers look like they're going to have, right? Corner is going to be a need next year.
huge.
Quarterback, obviously the biggest need. Wide receiver, a big need. Right guard, if Jones doesn't hit, left tackle. That's just five needs I just named for you right there. Okay? If you sign Jaylen Warren, you at least cross off running back too, because guess what? He walks. Kenneth Gainwell's contract ends. Sure, you have Caleb Johnson. You need another running back, two running backs. If you sign Jaylen Warren, who is a perfectly good player, he can be your running back too. Johnson can take over as your bell cow. And we see a lot of teams do this. We see, for example, the Lions sign David Montgomery, draft Jahmyr Gibbs. Boom, you have a 1-2 punch there for the next few years. I'm completely fine with that. Calvin Austin, if he walks, not only do you need a wide receiver too, which they absolutely are going to need next year, probably no matter what, they also are going to need a wide receiver three.
Yeah.
That's another thing you need to look at. And so you, by kind of extending those two, knock off role player roles. And I like that with DeShon Elliott too, because you would have needed a strong safety, right? So now you don't need a strong safety anymore. And so all of that kind of compounds itself because next year, when you are trading up to go get a quarterback, when you may even trade big draft capital next year to get that upgrade at wide receiver, I mean, that's not going to be out of the question. You need to be able to be flexible with your draft capital. And so I think extending these types of role players allows you to do that. It allows you to be aggressive and going for that wide receiver and the quarterback, which are easily going to be the two biggest needs next year. And then you can use the free agent money that you have to go sign that corner to do whatever you need to do there. But that's my thought process is that you kind of extend these guys who are perfectly solid to good role players and you check off needs next year because that list right now, it's real long and you're not going to have picks to fill in all those holes.
Well, I'm a little bit hesitant on paying running backs unless their names are like Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, just because I mean the market doesn't indicate that you really need to. And on the flip side, like I like Jaylen Warren a lot. I would be fine letting it play out, and then if you pay him 6-7 million, go ahead and do it. But the Caleb Johnson effect and the Caleb Johnson question mark right now, not knowing what he is and wanting to see what he can become. I mean, there's a possibility Caleb Johnson could end up becoming a starting running back where he ends up with 70% of the carries. If that's the case, do you want to pay Jaylen Warren 7-8 million to be another back in that backfield when you can go to the draft and maybe take one of the guys from Penn State, Nick Singleton or Katron Allen, who will both be out as seniors and were 1,000-yard backs last year. So there's always going to be running backs in more depth positions. You're right on the point where they're going to have to trade up for a quarterback, and they have 12 picks to be able to do it. Plus, they could even flip a 2027 first round pick if they really want to and get dicey to be able to get a quarterback. That's probably the best thing possible. Calvin Austin, yes, I think I would do that on maybe a 3 year. Can you get him for 3 and 21, 7 a year, maybe 3 and 24? That sounds reasonable. He hasn't really had that true breakout season yet.
If you could just get him for 220, I think that'd be fine. That's
Yeah,
10 a year. But that's what Tutu Atwell got. Calvin Austin had better stats all like across the board than Tutu Atwell last year. If I were Calvin Austin, I'd want at least 10. I think 2 for 12, 2 for 20. That's fine with me. You get him under contract through 26 at that point. It allows you to kind of evaluate Roman Wilson, get your kind of ducks in order there. I like the idea of extending Jaylen Warren though, just because you mentioned Singleton and Allen. I don't want to spend a day two pick on a running back. I just don't. I want to spend that
fair.
day two pick on a guard. I want to spend that day two pick on a corner. Like I want to start drafting for the future a little bit around my quarterback. I want to draft a safety maybe. If Minka's gone after 26, you're going to need somebody in that row, right? I'd like that guy to at least work under Minka for a year. How about inside linebacker? Patrick Queen's contract is up after 2026. Like, would you like to get someone in there next to Peyton Wilson potentially that's younger? Like that's kind of my thought process with extending Warren is then you don't have to spend a pick on a running back. And I don't think Jaylen Warren's going to cost that much. I mean, 6, 7 a year, I'm perfectly fine paying him that. I think he's worth that. He's one of the best pass protecting backs in football. I'm fully down with that. I mean, we're talking about, guys in that tier. I mean, he got 7 a year. I mean, he's getting around the same money as like Tony Pollard.
It's getting less than Najee.
Right. I mean, we're not talking about a huge deal here. I think we're talking about a very affordable deal for the Steelers in that regard. So I think I'm completely okay with that, especially when you're a run first team. I'm okay with also extending Seumalo if you really like him, but guards, we'll see where that goes. That could be a draft need, a sneaky draft need next year for them. I just see the laundry list of needs, and I don't want to spend a high pick on a running back. I want to make sure that I can go after a quarterback and a wide receiver like that. That is, I'm not even kidding. Yes, you have a bigger view, obviously, and you're going to need corner and guard probably and some other needs. But next year in the offseason, if I'm Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin, I'm sitting down saying, how can we fix those two problems for good? How can we get the wide receiver next to DK Metcalf? And how can we get our quarterback? And I want the flexibility to do that. And that's why I would kind of put in a guy like Warren there. Very quarterback friendly on top of that, right? That helps your quarterback. He's a great receiver, great pass protector, solid player. And even if Johnson becomes a star, I mean, most top running backs in the league nowadays are only taking 60% of the carries. Even guys like Jonathan Taylor and Saquon. I mean, Saquon Barkley did not take a ton of the carries last year. He took most of them, but I think he was like 65%.
Yeah, Gainwell might be a factor this year too, Nick. Like he might
Yeah.
be as a third back, maybe more of a pass catcher, but he had a lot of opportunities when Philadelphia called his number. I mean, he delivered.
Yep.
And the other thing about the quarterback situation, they should do no matter how many picks it is. If they feel confident enough in a quarterback, they should go up and get him. And if it turns out where whatever quarterback it is, whether it's Aller, whether it's Sellers, whether it's Klubnik, if they have a dynamite wide receiver that comes with them, that has developed in a system with them, kind of like a Burrow Chase type of factor. If you can find something similar to that, where there's a wide receiver that already has that chemistry, I would be perfectly fine if it's a first, second round, or even a third round type of situation where you trade up and get your quarterback, whatever range is necessary, and then add a weapon already familiar with to go next to Metcalf that is an explosive, athletic wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly possible. We'll see kind of the routes they go, but those are like the biggest two things they got to fix next year. As for this TJ Watt discussion, Austin, let's get to this. Where are you on this? In terms of where are you comfortable paying him? how long do you think this is going to take? I'm not shocked at all by how this has played out so far. I wasn't surprised he wasn't there at minicamp. Fully expected. He's sending the message that, hey, it's time to pay up because you guys could have paid me last year and you didn't. And now the $40 million is the set market. He's gonna want more. I don't know if he gets it, but where are you kind of coming in on TJ?
See, I am a little bit surprised by how it's played out. Now, I mean, it did start when JJ Watt went on the Pat McAfee show and said, like, look, this should have been done already by now. It would be better for TJ and the Steelers if this contract was already signed. I do agree with that. But I do think that we're seeing a little bit of a change with TJ Watt, whether it's ego or whatever, with the peace sign on Instagram, not showing up to mandatory minicamp when the last time that this occurred, he was there and he held in. This is a change from TJ Watt. This is different. This is not what history has told us TJ Watt has done in the past in 2021 when he was negotiating a contract. So I am a little put off by it. I would not give him 40 million. I don't think that the Steelers should cater to the Browns' lunacy and the Browns just being moronic, maybe for a lack of a better word, and overpaying for Myles Garrett when the market did not indicate that he needed to be paid 40 million, but they were just so fearful that their star wanted out of the city. How can we bring Myles back in? Let's just give him a blank check. What do you want? 40 million is the number. We'll pay you the most of anybody that's not a quarterback. So I don't think that the Steelers should automatically, even though unfortunately that's just how it is in the NFL. Whoever the highest paid guy is at your position, the next guy wants to match it, wants to top it, wants to be the best. Even if it's one penny more, TJ Watt is going to want more than Myles Garrett. Now, you're also in this type of contract not paying for something that TJ Watt has already done. He is the greatest pass rusher in Steelers history. Is that arguable? I mean, you could say by position outside linebacker, Joe Green inside, I mean, whatever, we can have that argument all day, whether, position by position, whatever, but that's just a different tangent. He, what's he going to be from 31, 32, 33, 34? That is what you're projecting. That is what you are paying. Myles Garrett is 29. Okay, so a lot of those are the front 2 years of TJ's deal at 31, 32, where Garrett in his contract, it's not taking up 34, 33 years old. And I think that that should also be a sticking point here. I would be fine if the Steelers front loaded this contract with Watt, where they pay him. I'm comfortable at 35 to 38. I think they eventually will cave close to 40, even if it's just for the first year, where they should front it, guarantee the first year about 90% of the way, maybe even 100% guarantee it, and guarantee the second year. And the second year has been a big sticking point for them. But I would not guarantee the third year. I would not guarantee the fourth year. I would throw some incentives in there if necessary. I think it eventually will get done. They're not going to trade him. They're obsessed with one helmet guys like TJ and Cam, as long as it's on their terms. Because I mean, Troy and Hines Ward were not ready to be done, but ultimately just decided, all right, we'll just retire. I don't think TJ Watt is that type of guy. He's going to fight for every penny, and if he doesn't get 40, this could get ugly.
Well, here's the thing. I think if Cam Hayward didn't get his deal last year, he fully would have been fine going elsewhere. I think that was legit.
Really? See,
I
see, I
do.
don't. I think Watt would be more in that boat than Cam that would
I
rather
think
play somewhere
Cam
else.
wants to play until he's 38, and if the Steelers didn't pay up to do that, he would have gone elsewhere. But they did, and so that's what happened there. Here's interesting with TJ. Why is he holding out now? And people ask me this all the time. Last time in 21, there was no one else in that bucket of edge rushers that was
Yeah,
going to kind of even come close to what TJ got. TJ was going to get his big deal. It was going to be the highest paid edge rusher no matter what. So it didn't matter if he was there, if he wasn't there. So he just held in. This time, it's certainly not a foregone conclusion. One, you got Myles Garrett, $40 million per year. Two, you have Micah Parsons. And I think Micah Parsons plays into this way more than people think. Is he way younger? Is he the Watt of 21, basically? Yes. Is Micah Parsons going to be the highest paid non quarterback in NFL history when he gets his deal? 100%. But
probably.
here's the interesting thing. And if you observe this, this is interesting. TJ Watt is represented by CAA. Michael Parsons is represented by David Mulugeta and Athletes First. These are two generational bag getting agencies. And you know how I know that? Look at what David Mulligetta did when he got Deshaun Watson, the most fully guaranteed money in NFL history on a deal. But then look at CAA and what they did last year. Let's go back last year. I don't know if people remember this. Do you remember how many quarterbacks got extended last year in this time period? Jared Goff, Tua Tagovailoa, Jordan Love, Dak Prescott.
And they were all one-upping each other.
Dak Prescott is represented by who? CAA. And he was the last one to sign. And he got the last deal. He got $60 million, dollars, the most guaranteed money, the largest signing bonus in NFL history. He set the market. CAA is big on kind of getting their clients this big contract. If you don't think they're waiting for TJ Watt to try and get the same for him, who's going to blink first? I don't know. Probably CAA, because I think David Mulligetta is like the most cold-blooded agent in the game, to be quite honest with you. He gets what he wants. And so I think probably it's going to be TJ Watt that ends up on the lower end of this. But this could drag out a while because these two guys are going to stare at each other and say, we don't want to get here unless the Cowboys start saying, okay, Michael, we'll give you 42, 43 a year, in which case he gets that bag and the TJ Watt calculus changes, right? Not that he's going to need 44 a year, but still, even if the low end of the deal was going to be 38, which it might be right now, that low end of the deal says, okay, now I should be equal to Myles Garrett. And so,
Well, let's not leave this out either, Nick. What's going to happen with Trey Hendrickson? Because look,
yeah.
he's not TJ Watt, he's not Micah Parsons, but Cincinnati's defense is absolutely decimated. I don't know if I could tell you more than four guys on that defense right now because I mean they just cut Pratt. Their corners are a mess. Their secondary just disastrous. Their interior line, they moved off a couple of those guys. They are awful on the defensive side of the ball. They were bad last year. They're going to be way worse. Shamar Stewart doesn't even want to sign a contract with them. Their rookie first round pick. Like that is a tire fire right now. What's going on in Cincinnati? I think that Hendrickson will probably end up getting a deal. But let's say hypothetically he signs for 39 and Watt obviously wants to hit 40. But let's say that Hendrickson also gets 40 or 39. There is no way TJ Watt is taking anything less than Trey Hendrickson in that situation. Maybe he can be convinced on Garrett. Maybe. Probably not because he always wants to one-up Garrett, and I understand that. He took a Defensive Player of the Year trophy away from him when he was unworthy. Garrett should not have taken that from him. It should have been Watt's trophy. But I think that that's something that we're also leaving out of this a little bit because Parsons is obviously so good. But what did the Bengals ultimately end up overpaying Hendrickson?
Well, Aiden Hutchinson with the Lions is going to get a deal too.
Yeah.
So there's a few of these guys. I think Hendrickson's pretty obviously going to land somewhere between Garrett and Max Crosby. Crosby got 35 and a half. Let's see where that lands. If it's more 37, I think then you can slot Watt right there at like 39, which is I think that's where he's going to end up here. I think you're probably going to end up with like 39 million. He's probably not going to end up getting Garrett's money. I just don't see it happening. And this might happen like 2 days before the season starts. And so I'm interested to see how this plays out. It's going to happen. I think trading him is just like not happening at all. I don't even think it's a discussion point inside South Water Street right now. So don't even like I don't even bring that up because I don't even think it's plausible. And so the Steelers, I think, very much are going to pay him. It's just going to be how much. And there's this kind of staring match with these other edge rushers in the rotation. If that Myles Garrett deal never got signed, TJ Watt would be under contract right now. I'm like not even kidding. The
I believe it.
extension would be done. He would have gotten 37 million, 37 and a half, somewhere around there per year, a little bit more than Crosby got, and TJ Watt would have set the new number at edge, and it would have been done. The fact that Garrett got $40 million per year threw everything to a wrench. It literally
I
did.
wonder if the Steelers thought that maybe the Garrett thing would drag on a little bit longer
I think everyone
because,
did.
I mean, the Browns, what was it? 3 weeks? The entire thing played out
Yeah.
between, oh, here's my statement. I love Cleveland, but please get me out of here. And then just give him a shiny new check that changes everything. Now he wants to take Aaron Rodgers to the graveyard. So money talks. Ultimately, I think it's going to get done. Should it is the bigger question. I am not comfortable paying TJ Watt 40 million for years where I don't think he's going to be productive at 33 and 34. He's not going to be nearly the same player. I think he probably has two left at a elite level. But then Father Time's catching up. He didn't have a sack or a stat in what the final four games. He had like one tackle.
Hmm.
He was supposed to run away with defensive player of the year, and it all fell flat on him. So he's been banged up with injuries near the end of the year. I just wonder how much of a worthy investment it is. And I like TJ Watt as much as the rest of everybody, but I do wonder if you're going to get bang for your buck in those final few years of the deal. I truly do. And I think that's a big holdup for the Steelers.
Yeah, we've talked about this on here a little bit. That I think he's gonna have to reinvent his game to become more of a power rusher. He's a speed rusher. Speed rushers just don't age well. They don't.
No.
It's matter of fact, they lose the explosiveness. T's is gonna have to move around the formation a little more. We're gonna have to see a little bit new with him, but obviously, I think he is capable of doing that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's still productive into 33, 34. We will see kind of how that goes out. I'm interested to see where this deal goes. The guaranteed money, I think, is going to be very heavy. Is it going to be into year three guaranteed money? I think probably. So I imagine into the age 34 year, he's going to have some guarantees in his contract.
And I'm not saying that he's going to be like a bad player at all, but level of production wise to be able to match the money is what I'm more concerned
Yeah,
of.
I get
At
it.
that point, he's probably more of a 10 sack guy, 8 to 10 sack guy at 34 than he is being paid to be a 18 to 20 sack guy or threatening Strahan and his own record
Yeah,
again.
I mean that's possible. We'll kind of see where it goes, but I imagine that if you're signing a deal that big, the first 2 years are absolutely going to be guaranteed, and then the third year is probably going to have some guarantees in it. That's just kind of the structure of this and kind of how I imagine it going. So we'll see how this all goes out. It's going to happen. I think it has a shot to drag along unless they kind of come to these amicable terms. And I do think that Watt and Parsons are kind of in a staring match with one another right now, and they're like, let's see who blinks first, and we'll see. I imagine I think it's going to be Watt who eventually blinks first because I think Parsons is going to wring that rag dry. I really do. So we will see how that goes. But either way, Austin, thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for discussing contract extensions. We love juicy talk of contract extensions, of course. But let them know where they can watch stuff, listen to you, read everything, follow you, all that great stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Nick, for having me on. Really appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at Austin R. Bechtold, and you can listen. I'm on sporadically myself on the 93.7 The Fan, and you can also catch me every day with Pomp and Joe, the Pomp and Joe Show, 10 to 2, producing the show and also chiming in every day.
And make sure to check that out, folks. As always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell here on Steelers Breakdown. Make sure to read the Steelers stuff over penlive.com/Steelers. You can follow me on Twitter at Farabaugh FB. Thanks for listening, everybody. Be back tomorrow.